Hi, good morning, and welcome to the ZP vlog and podcast. So we do this every Sunday at 8 a.m. London time, and it's just really a summary of the sort of news from ZP for this week. So I will jump into it. So every Thursday at 8 a.m. London time, we do a webinar where we try to sort of answer technical questions for members of the ZP Developer Zone, and we sort of cover um, topics, that have kind of come in around, and they're generally technical topics. So we have covered that this week. We did discuss pH and mycotoxins and heavy metal, and also induced pluripotent stem cells. So when you look at that sort of list of things, let's say, the pH and the induced pluripotent stem cells, you can measure pH in many sort of bioreactors and proteins, but you can also measure pH in when you're growing some of these stem cells. So at ZP, we're very interested in stem cells. They have a lot of therapeutic value and potential. I just want to say hi to Saran this morning. Lovely to see you, Saran. So we are very interested in obviously measuring pH in liquids, and this does play a role in induced pluripotent stem cells. And pluripotent stem cells, they can be used as essentially an advanced therapeutic. And so we do have a number of PhDs running along these lines, and we're putting our biosensors into their experiments and measuring the conditions. The thesis is, if you want to have a reproducible process, then you need to at least monitor that process, and you need to, if you can monitor it, you can control it. If you can control the conditions, then you can have maybe a repeatable process. I just want to say to Saran, hang on, Saran, because I have some news for you. Now, something else that happened this week as well is a couple of our colleagues went to Norway Health Tech. So there were some visitors, ironically, from the United Kingdom. So these people came over from places like Leeds and Manchester. And I say ironically because Zimmer Peacock is also in the UK. So we met these guys from the UK, but actually met them in Norway. And so a couple of ZP guys went along to Norway Health Tech and represented Zimmer Peacock in Oslo this week. So thank you to them, and thank you to the guys from Leeds and Manchester that we met at that conference. As I say, we just like to kind of go through and chat about things that have come in this week. Now, this one's much more sort of technical, but we did have an inquiry on Prussian blue electrodes, and at ZP we do have a whole, I don't know, a bunch, but a whole range of sensors with mediators on them. And some of those mediators include Prussian blue and ferrocyanide and methylene blue, Maldala blue, ruthenium purple, and then phenanthrene dione. And mediators, I think, are quite useful because they can help. If we were traditionally using maybe platinum or gold, particularly platinum, I think, then you can sometimes replace the platinum with actually one of these mediators. And it is becoming more important. Platinum was actually, it's a rare metal, and in part it's rare because it's essentially stardust. Platinum was made in the explosions of dying stars, and this platinum is, essentially sort of condensed into the earth, and as part of the Earth's mantle. But that stardust sort of essentially origin of it makes it quite a rare metal, and so it is in high demand these days, things like platinum, and therefore having these mediated electrodes is probably a good option for people, because everyone in the end, they always want high quality and low cost. Well, it's hard to have low cost necessarily with platinum. So we do have some Prussian blue electrodes. We have some images on the website, and there's this kind of nice turquoisey blue color associated with them. And this is also something from my colleague Saran, that at ZP, we are very mindful that we have an extremely skilled team, and the skills go beyond just biosensing. We have a very strong electromechanical team, a very strong systems team, and so we've launched a new website and a new effort around Zimmer Peacock Consulting, and this is really taking the skill sets from Zimmer Peacock, which are much more generic than just biosensing. And when you think about industry, the things that have to take place in industry, and there's strategizing. What are we going to do? What are we going to do that's kind of commercially useful? And then there's then there's planning. What having had a strategy, how are we going to implement that strategy? And that's almost a tactical decision. And then there's implementation, and then there's deliverable. So at ZP, we're very mindful that the team is much stronger than just the idea of biosensing. The electromechanical and systems group is a really strong team. We have, and so we're expanding now our skill set to be able to go outside of just biosensing as well. So looking forward to working on some more, let's say, diverse projects at ZP. So we will be diversifying. Also this week, I went to something called Lab Innovations at the NEC, the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, and walked and talked to a whole bunch of companies and individuals there. And it's really part of ZP's interest in Lab 4.0. Lab 4.0 is part of Industry 4.0, and it sort of says that you can have technologies from many vendors, and these technologies should all be able to work together. And ZP is part of that because we have an API strategy, an application program interface strategy, which kind of says that you can pull data from our cloud using what's called an API call. So I went to there to specifically talk to people in the sort of laboratory and advanced materials industry, but we were there really thinking about how our sensors are really part of this lab and this industry 4.0. And if you haven't heard of Industry 4.0, it's sort of considered the sort of fourth industrial revolution. The third industrial revolution was really sort of bringing in computers. The fourth industrial revolution is computers talking to computers now, which is really what's happening. The second industrial revolution was really the use of power, things like electricity and steam and coal to drive things. And the first industrial revolution was really the sort of moving from the craft fabrication of individual devices to more like mass production. So we're considered to be in the fourth industrial revolution at the moment, and I really think it's a true statement. Things are accelerating. Now, something else that we did this week as well is we went to what's called WISE CDT. So in the UK, we have lots of centres for doctoral training. I just want to say good morning to Aftab. Lovely to see you, Aftab. So we went there to talk about sensors in a sort of WASH application. WASH stands for water, sanitation and hygiene. So at ZP, we do have a whole series of sensors. We can sense arsenic and heavy metal, and we can sense pesticides, and we can test things like calcium and sodium and pH. All of these are either contaminants or in water, also just detecting the properties of water itself. So we did go to a good conference this week. As I say, it's not one I've really been kind of aware of before, but WASH is a sort of known acronym, and it just stands for, as I say, water, sanitation and hygiene. And so at Zimmer and Peacock, we are aligned with the UN sustainability goals. And so attending a WASH conference was completely in line with our kind of the way we want to be as a business. I did have an inquiry this week as well about custom screen printed electrodes, and I gave that person a sort of the idea of a design. I'm sort of saying, look, if you're going to do customization, maybe work within a sort of certain footprint. And the reason this footprint is useful is because it will allow them to be able to connect into standard potentiostats. It will allow them to be able to be scaled at manufacturing because it will be low enough cost. So we don't mind people having creativity in the electrodes and the electrode materials that they want to have, but it's also sometimes good to just put some boundaries around this. Otherwise, you do get all sorts of, I wouldn't say crazy designs, but I have seen some crazy designs. And so with that inquiry, we gave them the idea that actually they here's some design guides. If you stick within that, then at ZP we can really help you. Now, this is also, I think, the sort of last thing this week as well is Tech Blink is a well, they kind of organise conferences and exhibitions and events. I think they're very well thought of in the sort of technology area. I've been contacted by people saying, "Oh, I see you're speaking at Tech Blink." So okay, oh, okay, yeah. So they reached out to us, and I say Blink and it's Tech Blink, but they reached out to us and said, can you, you know, you guys are very sort of thought leading in the world of wearable sensors, including sensors for continuous glucose monitoring, detecting blood, detecting lactate. And on a side note, I'm actually talking at Sensors 100. They have a conference on sensors in medicine this Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. London time. And there I'll be talking about lactate. But at the same time, Tech Blink are also asking us to talk about printable wearable sensors for sports and athletic performance. And so we will be talking on the 2nd of December online there. So if I was to summarize the week, it's amazing how busy we generally get. I think the webinar is always busy. Well, we do this webinar, as I say, for the we do this webinar every Thursday 8 a.m. London time. I just want to we do this vlog live, and I just want to comment on Saran's comment. And I agree, Saran. What Saran was saying in the comments was, everyone wants this very distinct, bespoke electrode for themselves. But that means everything is customized, and of course, if you actually constrict or restrict yourself to working within a very clear footprint, that means that at Zimmer Peacock, we know it'll fit our screens. We know how much we'll produce per print for approximately 300 sensors per sheet. We will know how to make electrical connection with it. We will know that actually it's not too big and it's not too small. And what I mean by that is if it's too big, then your production density is too low. And if it's too small, people can't handle it. So Saran, you're absolutely correct that we do want people to be creative and do their own designs. But you do have to sort of, if you work within the footprint that we're suggesting, then you will get something that is both functional and manufacturable. So we're delighted to kind of put out that kind of, guidance. You can call it design rules, etc., to help people make something that works for them, but is also manufacturable by people like us as well. Thank you to the team that went up to the Norway Health Tech. I know you're working hard promoting ZP in Norway, so it's super appreciated. As I say, platinum is becoming super expensive. It literally is stardust. So we do have technologies to replace platinum. We have a lot of mediated electrodes. From the systems engineering team at ZP, they've been very keen to kind of expand their capabilities, beyond biosensing. And I think this is an extremely experienced team. So I'm very delighted that we've put up a new website, and we will, build that up as well, and be able to sort of work in many areas. When you look at ZP, I've got Aftab and Saran are online this morning, so we've got people in the group who are extremely skilled at programming, coding, building websites. We've got people who are extremely skilled in microfluidics and electromechanical engineering and process engineering, I would say, as well. So, we want to apply that into new fields. Don't forget that all this technology these days has to be able to communicate with other systems. And so people, I think modern businesses do have to have a lab 4.0 mindset, which is, if I'm going to design a technology, I have to have the IT glue in place. What I mean by IT glue is the APIs in place so that technology can communicate with other technologies, because there'll be a whole ecosystem of companies that all provide part of the solution, and then people can use APIs to bring that together. And that applies into water, sanitation, and hygiene as well. That if you're going to do a sensing technology for this, people want the data on their phones. And having an Industry 4.0 and an API mindset means that data can go to the cloud, get processed, and can end up on their phones. If you are a developer of technology and you want customized screen printed electrodes, talk to ZP, because we will give you your ability to customize, but we will also give you the advice about not designing something that's essentially unmanufacturable. And don't forget that, you know, part of the remit at Zimmer Peacock is we make point of care and point of need technologies, but we're also able to make technologies for athletes, like monitoring the lactate in sweat. So I'll finish it there. I want to say thank you to Aftab and Saran for joining this week, particularly Saran, because that new website is all really around some of the ideas that are coming out the systems engineering team at Zimmer Peacock. Take care. Have a good week. Just so you know, some of us will be in San Diego this week, so you'll see next week there'll be lots of images and talk about things that we got up to in San Diego. Well, we will be going in part to UCSD, University College San Diego, and I'll meet up with Joseph Wang